Hello, listeners. It's Gunter Swoboda here with some exciting news. We're on the lookout for sponsors to join us on our incredible journey with Inspired Change with Gunter. If your organisation cares deeply about meaningful conversations around masculinity, self development, and mental health, we'd love to partner with you. Our podcast has a wonderful, dedicated audience committed to personal growth and positive social change. By sponsoring Inspired Change with Gunter, your brand will connect with listeners who truly value thoughtful discussion and support initiatives that promote real transformation. We're incredibly proud to be ranked #1 in Australia and #5 in the USA on FeedSpot's top men's mental health podcasts. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to Miranda Spiegner Sapon, our showrunner and executive producer. We'd love to explore how we can work together to inspire change. Now, thank you for your continued support, and let's keep inspiring change together.
You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. I'm your host. Hey, welcome listeners. Here's a quick note before we dive in. Amulets of Power, a Brian Poole Mystery, our supernatural noir debut, is now on sale. If you haven't picked up your copy, this is the time. Check the show notes for where to buy, how to subscribe, and how to join the Swoboda Josephson Inner Circle for exclusive updates, behind-the-scenes content, and invites to our upcoming book signing events. And a special or belated shout out to for this weekend or previous weekend to our US listeners. Happy Father's Day. Whether you're a dad, stepdad, mentor, or just trying to show up as a better man, this podcast is for you. So let's keep pushing the conversation on masculinity where it needs to go. Now let's get into this episode. So as you know, I'm Gunter, I'm your host. And today I'm tackling a topic that's likely to ruffle a few feathers, but that's exactly the point. This space is about honest, grounded dialogue. And believe me, I am open to being challenged. Now, why am I introducing this podcast like that? Because today I'm going to talk about Joe Rogan. More specifically, why his influence, especially amongst young men, is significant and potentially dangerous. And let me be clear from the start, this isn't a takedown of a man, but a critique of a phenomenon. He's not the only one in this camp. Rogan isn't just a podcaster, he's a platform. And one of the most powerful media platforms in the world, ironically. And with that kind of cultural reach comes responsibility, whether he wants to admit that or not. So let's take a deeper look. Let's start with the numbers. Rogan's podcast reaches millions of listeners per episode. He's one of the most streamed voices on Spotify. The format is long-form, casual, and wide-ranging. He chats with comedians, scientists, conspiracy theorists, MMA fighters, get it right, alt-right figures, and wellness gurus. And sometimes all in the same month. Now, at first glance, it feels like a good thing. And I say that from personal experience. I started listening to Joe Rogan many, many years ago. And there was a lot of stuff that I thought was pretty good. But as he got more popular, I started to take a step back and begin to critically analyse what he was saying, what he was doing, and who he was with. So the reason why I thought it was a good thing was it was open discussion, different viewpoints. And isn't that democracy? But I came to realise that there is a major issue, which is the lack of accountability. Rogan often claims, I'm just a guy asking questions. But when you're reaching 10 to 15 million people per episode, you're not just a guy. You're shaping culture. You influence how people see science, gender, politics, and identity. So I want you to ask this. What kind of space is being created here, and who actually does it serve? So let's go back to COVID for a moment. Rogan hosted guests who downplayed vaccine safety and promoted unproven treatments. In some cases, his episodes triggered public backlash from medical communities and even led Spotify staff to protest. Now, what's the danger here? Well, it's subtle, but very, very real. When misinformation is framed as an alternative perspective, it, by definition, gains legitimacy. It becomes difficult for listeners, especially younger or disaffected men, to separate evidence from opinion or science from speculation. And let's face it, in our society, we're not particularly good at teaching critical thinking. Now, all of this has consequences, not just in individual choices, but in the erosion of public trust, whether that be in science, in politics, or general ideology. And we've really seen what happens when misinformation goes viral. People make decisions that put lives at risk. Now, one of Rogan's trademarks is a kind of anti-intellectual tone. He often mocks academics, journos, and scientists as being out of touch. Now, this resonates deeply with listeners who feel alienated by elite institutions or by progressive politics. But here's the trick. This skepticism often crosses the line into cynicism. And that's a very dangerous trajectory. Once you convince someone that everyone with expertise is untrustworthy, you leave them vulnerable to bad actors who claim to just tell it like it is. Right? The episode with Mel Gibson was a classic. It was one of those things that really stood out. Now, Mel Gibson's a great actor, and he's also a great director and producer, but he's not an expert in many of the things that he talks about. So now that's how populist demagogues operate. That's how disinformation spreads, not through shouting necessarily, but through suggestion, through familiarity, through trust without scrutiny. So let me bring this into the echo chamber of patriarchy. A huge part of Rogan's appeal is his ability to speak to men who feel lost in today's world. Men who are struggling with identity, responsibility and purpose. And I get that. That's what this podcast and Making Good Men Great is all about. But here's where I draw the line. When male vulnerability is exploited to reinforce regressive norms, then we're in trouble. Rogan's platform repeatedly features voices who valorize dominance, silent stoicism, emotional detachment, and control, and often coercive control. The old script of what it means to be a man. We don't need that. These aren't just nostalgic throwbacks. They're actually harmful. Guests like Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate reinforce a worldview where feminism is a threat, vulnerability is a weakness, and identity politics are just leftist scams. And Rogan rarely, if ever, challenges these positions. He normalises them. He packages them as alternative thinking. Now, some defenders say, but Gunter, he brings on all kinds of people. Yes, I admit he's had Bernie Sanders on. He's spoken with Neil deGrasse Tyson. But these episodes are the exception, they're not the rule. What we see instead is a repeated pattern. A selective amplification of libertarian, conspiratorial, or reactionary voices, especially around masculinity, freedom, and the so-called war on men. It creates a false sense of balance, what media theorists call both-sidism, presenting harmful ideologies as if they were just another opinion in the marketplace of ideas. No discrimination. But not all ideas are harmless, and not all platforms are neutral. Now, this is what researchers are now calling the gateway effect. Rogan doesn't always push people into extremism directly, but the guests, the topics, the algorithmic recommendations, they nudge listeners into deeper rabbit holes, especially to meet the Mad Hatter. One moment it's a conversation about diet and fitness, and the next it's anti-feminist screeds or climate denial. And the transitions are so smooth, so casual, that you barely notice the shift, and that's the danger. In psychological terms, we call this desensitization. Gradually normalizing once extreme views until they feel just reasonable, relatable, even aspirational. So where does this leave us? First, we stop pretending that this is just entertainment. Rogan's not a passive observer. He's a cultural operator. Whether he owns it or not, he is shaping how a generation of men think about truth, power, and identity. Second, we need to build alternative spaces for men. Spaces that are honest but ethical, grounded but open, where men can question themselves, challenge the status quo, and grow without falling into paranoia or macho dogma. That's the work we're doing here in Inspire Change. That's what making good men great is about. Not handing men another script, but inviting them into a process of becoming, a creation of self that's accountable, relational, and conscious. Let me close with this. Joe Rogan's success isn't mysterious. He's charismatic, appears curious, and he is conversational. But charisma without conscience is a dangerous thing, and curiosity without critical thinking can lead us astray, especially in today's climate where we have a significant patriarchal backlash. So the next time someone tells you Rogan is just asking questions, ask this: who benefits from the answers? So this has been Inspire Change with Gunter. I'm your host as always. Let's keep the dialogue going intellectually, ethically, and courageously. And take people with you into that space of conversation, of dialogue, not of lectures. So until next time, take care and be inspiring.
Greetings, gratitude, and a big bienvenido. Devana here and the entire team at Inspire Change with Gunter. This week, we would like to bring attention to our neighbor listeners to the south of us in Mexico, particularly all of you in Mexico City. Congratulations! For the first time, you are only 5 spots away from the top 10 global listeners list. As you've made it to spot 15, thank you, gracias to each and every listener. We appreciate every one of you and are grateful for your likes, shares, follows, and subscribes. But most of all, for you continuing to inspire positive social change.
Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.gunterswoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com.